Hey everyone, and welcome to my beginner's guide to tanking on the Brewmaster Monk in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. This guide's intended for someone who's new to tanking on a monk, or maybe has been tanking a little bit but feels like they haven't quite figured everything out. If you're already really comfortable tanking in heroic level difficulty or higher, this probably isn't the guide for you. If you feel like you've still got things to learn though, this definitely is the guide. We're going to talk about the fantasy of playing as a monk. We're going to look at our resources. We're going to get into our spell book and go over each of our spells and how they work individually and together. Then we're going to take a look at our rotation for tanking and how we actually use our abilities in combination to do our job in dungeons. And then at the very end, we're going to take everything that we've learned into a dungeon and see it in practice. So, if that sounds like stuff that you're interested in, stick around with me. Keep in mind that you can check the description box below for timestamps to the various sections so you can get to exactly the stuff that you want to learn in particular. All right, let's start talking about the class fantasy for the Brewmaster Monk. So, monks in general, they're all about that kung fu, punching, kicking, dealing damage to the enemies, healing their friends. The Brewmaster Monk in particular, however, is all about tanking. And the Brewmaster Monk is going to be splashing alcohol around everywhere, breathing fire. If you've ever seen that movie Drunken Master, that's kind of what this is like. Brewmaster monks are going to be wearing leather armor. They can use fist weapons, staves, polearms, and one-handed swords, axes, and maces. Generally speaking, you're going to be sticking with the two-handed weapons, the staves or the polearms. Those other things are available to you, but you're going to want to go two-hander as much as possible. All right, let's talk about the resources available to the Brewmaster Monk. You really have one resource. We've got two bars up here, but one of these is kind of sort of a resource, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Our main resource that we have is energy. You start combat with 100 energy, and energy is going to constantly regenerate. You're going to spend it on some of your abilities, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's not too complicated, it's fairly simple. All right, so now let's get into our spell book and start talking about our spells. Now I'm going to go through each of these. I'm going to talk about them all in depth. I am going to skip over any abilities that you see that come from talents. We're going to get into talking about talents and any abilities we have from that later on. So for now, we're just going to focus on the abilities that you're always going to have. If you've watched one of my videos before, then you kind of are going to know how I organize things on the action bar here. But for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, I will tell you exactly kind of what we're doing as I get to each individual section on the action bar. And that'll make sense once I do it, so just hang in there. Our first ability is going to be Blackout Strike. Blackout Strike is a melee attack. It's instant cast with a 3-second cooldown. You strike with a blast of chi energy, dealing damage and generating a stack of Elusive Brawler. Now, Elusive Brawler is our mastery. So for our mastery, we have Elusive Brawler, and this is every time you get hit by a melee attack or you use Blackout Strike, you're going to get a stacking percent increase to your chance to dodge. So to simplify things, the percentage is going to be based on the amount of mastery you have. Based on what I have right now, you can see that I'm getting 10.9%. We're just going to use 10% as the example here. So every time we get hit by a melee attack or we use Blackout Strike and hit with it, we're going to get a 10% increase in our chance to dodge. What this means is that after getting hit 10 times by a melee attack, we'll have a 100% chance to dodge. So we will definitely dodge the next attack. And as that starts to build up, you're going to be able to dodge more and more often, more frequently. And that's what this ability does, because we don't have to hit 100% to actually dodge. We're still going to have that chance to dodge that we normally would, but now we're going to keep adding to our percent chance to dodge until we eventually do dodge. So let's say that we have 6 stacks of Elusive Brawler. We have 60% chance to dodge on top of our normal chance to dodge, and we actually dodge. Well, that's going to use up all the stacks of Elusive Brawler because we've successfully dodged, and then those are going to start to build up again. Our mastery also has a secondary effect, will increase our attack power, which will make us hit harder. So Blackout Strike is going to add a stack of Elusive Brawler every time we use it. This is an ability that we're going to want to use frequently, and I usually put those down here on this left side of the bottom portion of the action bar. And this is where I put these sort of like core rotation abilities, the buttons we're going to be hitting all the time. And that brings us to our next ability, which is Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire is an instant cast ability with a 15-second cooldown that breathes fire in a cone in front of you, dealing damage. There's a secondary effect here, but we're going to talk about that after we look at a different ability. So we'll come back to it, but this ability is one we're going to be wanting to use all the time, so we're going to put that down here as well. Next up, we have Crackling Jade Lightning. Now, Crackling Jade Lightning is an ability that is primarily going to be used by Mistweaver monks, not Brewmaster monks. This is a pretty expensive ability. It costs you 20 energy plus 20 per second while you're channeling it. It will deal damage over 3.7 seconds here. Sometimes it will knock back melee attackers, and it has a 40-yard range. Generally speaking, this is not an ability that we want to use because it has such a high energy cost and it does really low damage, but you can use this ability to pull an enemy who is far away if you really need to. So I'm going to put this over here on the right-hand side, top portion of my action bar. This is where I put utility abilities that I'm probably not going to use very often. Next up, we have Detox. So this is a utility ability, instant cast, 8-second cooldown. It will remove all poison and disease effects from the target. Now, I'm not going to say that you never ever want to use this, but generally speaking, you're going to be focused on tanking, not focused on removing poison and disease from the target. That's generally going to be something that your healer can do. Maybe in really high difficulty levels, you'll be doing something like this, or solo, you might be doing something like this. So once again, we're going to put this over here next to our Crackling Jade Lightning as a ability we want to remember that we have, but we're not necessarily going to use very often. Our next ability here is called Expel Harm. This is an instant cast ability that costs 15 energy. It says draw in the positive chi of all your healing spheres and expel negative chi, damaging the nearest enemy for 10% of the amount healed. So maybe you're saying, healing spheres? What? So our healing spheres are going to come from our ability Gift of the Ox. This is one of our passive abilities. Whenever we take damage, we have a chance to summon a healing sphere. And this is a little gold sphere that'll kind of hover above the ground. And this is going to be visible only to you, like no one else can see them. When you move through the healing sphere, it's going to heal you. So what our Expel Harm will do is it will draw in all the spheres around us so we don't have to move to them. It will heal us for whatever those healing spheres would heal us for, and then it'll also reflect 10% of that damage, or 10% of that healing as damage to the nearest enemy. So this is a good way to gather up all the spheres around you if you're in a situation where you don't want to move, or you can't move, or you can't really see, how many orbs are around. You can hit Expel Harm, and then you can get that healing and do a little bit of damage. So this is a utility ability that we probably will use fairly often. So that goes up here on the left-hand side of the bar. Next, we have Fortifying Brew. This is a big defensive cooldown. It's instant cast with 7 minutes for the cooldown. It turns your skin to stone for 15 seconds, increasing your current and maximum health by 20%, increasing the effectiveness of stagger by 10%, and reducing all damage you take by 20%. So we're going to come back to this ability a little bit later once we figure out what stagger is. But this is going to increase your current and maximum health by 20%. That means any sort of percentage heals are going to do even more healing for you. It also means you're just going to have a bigger life pool to work with while you're tanking, and it's going to reduce all the damage that you take by 20%. So this is a big bad defensive cooldown, and since we're on a tank, I like to put those right here on the right-hand side of the bottom bar here. And we'll come back and take a look at that stagger again once we get to it. Next, we have Iron Skin Brew. This is a swig of strong brew that allows you to stagger substantially more damage for 7 seconds. It's an instant cast ability with a 14-second recharge. It shares a charge with purifying brew and has a max of 3 charges. Okay, did you just get overwhelmed? Maybe. That's a lot of stuff to take in. So, this is the point where we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about a couple of different things that are very important to tanking on a Brewmaster Monk. So first off, let's go ahead and drag this down here. This is going to be part of our core rotation. We're just going to keep that in mind as we're talking about things. So first off, okay, we've got an instant cast ability, 14-second recharge. It lets you stagger more damage. Okay, what's stagger? Well, I said that's something we're going to come back to, and now's the time to do it. So we have another passive ability called stagger, and this is where the majority of your damage mitigation comes in for a monk. Except it's not damage mitigation, and we'll get to that. So stagger says you shrug off attacks, delaying a portion of physical damage based on your agility, instead taking it over 10 seconds. This also affects magical attacks at 35% effectiveness. So let's use a really simple example here and say we're taking 100 damage. If that damage is physical, then we're going to negate a portion of that damage, and how much we negate is based on that agility, but generally it's between 40 and 50% or so. So let's say it's 40%. So we get hit for 100 damage. What happens is we instantly take 60 damage. That comes right off of our health bar. Then the other 40 damage we're still going to take. However, instead of taking it all at once like we did the 60 damage, it goes into this bar here. And this bar is our stagger bar. And what happens is as we take hits, that damage that is being staggered is building up in this bar, and over 10 seconds, we start taking that damage. So what that means is we take that 60 damage, then that 40 damage that's left, we'll take 4 damage per second for 10 seconds until we've taken that entire 100 damage. And then after that, that particular instance of staggered damage is gone. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking some of the damage right away, and then we're delaying some of the damage. So, if you imagine you've got 200 health and you get hit for 200 damage, well, if you get hit like that on a warrior or a death knight or a paladin, you just die. If you get hit like that on a monk, you take 100 damage, and then 100 of that damage gets dealt to you 10 damage at a time for 10 seconds. So in a way, you have this time delay where hopefully your healer can heal you up past the amount of damage that you have, but we also have a couple of ways to take care of some of that stagger ourselves that we're going to get to. All that in mind, the same thing will apply to magic attacks, except it's drastically reduced. We only reduce that magical attack damage at 35% of the effectiveness that we would for the physical damage. So magic damage can still take a big chunk of our health away, so you got to watch out for that, but we do still stagger some of it. Okay, so back over to our Iron Skin Brew. This will allow you to stagger substantially more damage for 7 seconds. So that means instead of 100, instead of taking 60 right away, maybe we take 50 or 40 right away, and a bigger portion of that is going to go into our stagger bar, and then we're going to be taking that as that 10-second damage over time. So this will allow you to absorb a lot more damage and hopefully, give your healer some time to get you healed up. And then this says it shares charges with Purifying Brew. So we're going to skip a couple of abilities here, and we're going to go straight to our Purifying Brew and talk about what that does. So this is also an instant cast ability with a 14-second recharge. We can see that it shares charges with Iron Brew with a maximum of 3 charges. This clears 50% of your damage delayed with stagger. So this is how we're sort of able to heal ourselves in a way. So we use the same example. We've taken 100 damage, or we get hit for 100 damage. We take 60 right away, and 40 goes into our stagger bar and is going to get dealt to us as damage over time. If as soon as we get hit, we cast Purifying Brew, then 20 of that 40 damage disappears. It's gone. We never get dealt that amount of damage. Now we're getting dealt that 20 damage over 10 seconds as a damage over time ability. Now, on a small scale like that, it might not sound too impressive, but if you blow that number up and say, okay, you got hit for 100,000, you took 60,000 right away, and then 40,000 went into your stagger bar, and then you used Purifying Brew and you cleared off 20,000 damage, that's great. Now, the thing about stagger is that it's your bar builds up from all the attacks you take. So if you have 8 people attacking you all at the same time and they're just punching the crap out of you, you're going to get a bigger stagger bar much faster, which means that when you cast Purifying Brew, you're not just getting rid of 50% of the damage from a single attack, you're getting rid of 50% of the damage from multiple attacks that could have hit you. So this is where we have the ability to mitigate a lot of damage and in effect heal ourselves, because we would eventually take that damage, but now instead we've just made half of it disappear. Now, because this does share charges with our Iron Skin brew, we have to be careful about which one that we're using at any particular time, and you don't want to just hit Purifying Brew just for the heck of it. You want to use it in an instance where either you're not going to be able to use Iron Skin Brew or you really need to clear some stagger damage. And we'll talk about when you might want to use that stuff when we get into the rotation portion of the video. So we're going to put this down here with our Iron Skin Brew as well. That's another thing that we're definitely going to want to have on hand and be actively using pretty often. All right, moving back to our other abilities, we're on to the next page here where we're talking about Keg Smash. So Keg Smash is one of our energy spending abilities. It costs 40 energy, it's an instant cast, and it has a 7.4 second cooldown. This is going to be different depending on how much haste you have, but roughly. You smash a keg of brew on the target, dealing damage to all enemies within 8 yards, and reducing their movement speed by 20% for 15 seconds. Okay, so we're just going to look at that real quick. So this is an AoE ability that deals damage to all the enemies in front of you and reduces their movement speed, right? So this is a good way to get threat on multiple targets. So this is an ability we're going to use pretty often. Now, the other effect of Keg Smash is that it will reduce the remaining cooldown on your brews by 4 seconds. So, anytime we Keg Smash, we're going to take 4 seconds off of our recharge time for Iron Skin Brew and Purifying Brew, because they share charges, and some of the other brews that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on, including our Fortifying Brew. So, every time we Keg Smash, we're going to be taking 4 seconds off of our cooldown for Fortifying Brew, so we're going to have that big cooldown back a lot sooner. Also, remember I said we come back to our Breath of Fire after we talked about Keg Smash, and that is because if you look at the second paragraph here, targets affected by Keg Smash will also burn when they're hit by Breath of Fire, and this will make them take a chunk of fire damage as a damage over time, and it will reduce the amount of damage they deal to you by 5% for the duration of that buff. So it's 12 seconds. So if you Keg Smash, then you Breath of Fire, first off, you get the damage from Keg Smash, you get the movement speed reduction for 15 seconds. Then, because you Breath of Fire the targets that are affected by Keg Smash, they'll take the damage from Breath of Fire, then they'll also get the damage over time debuff from Breath of Fire, and because of that, they'll deal 5% less damage to you for the next 12 seconds. So this is a combo you want to try to hit as much as you possibly can, because you're putting out more damage, you're getting the damage reduction, just all around it helps you hold threat, and it helps you to reduce the amount of damage that's being dealt to you. All right, next up we have Leg Sweep. Leg Sweep is a crowd control ability. This will knock down all enemies within 5 yards, stunning them for 3 seconds, and it has a 1-minute cooldown. So we're going to put that here. This is where I put all my CC abilities. And next up we have Paralysis. This is another crowd control ability for us. It costs 20 energy and has a 45-second cooldown. Instant cast. This will incapacitate a target for 1 minute. You can only have one target incapacitated, and any damage taken will cancel the effect. So this is a crowd control ability. These days, they don't get used too often in dungeons, but as you get into higher difficulties, it will become more important to crowd control particular enemies, and you'll be able to do that with your paralysis. Now you want to you can kind of use paralysis as an interrupt, but you want to be careful about that because of the nature of the ability. It will remove any damage over time effects from your target, because there's no point in casting paralysis on something if it's just going to take a tick of a dot and then immediately wake up. So if you have a bunch of dots and stuff rolling on a target, you need to interrupt an ability and you hit paralysis, maybe that ability was worth interrupting, but at the same time, you removed all of the damage over time abilities that were on that target. So be careful with that, but we're going to put that down here with our crowd control as well. Next, we have Provoke. This is our taunt for the monk. It's instant 8-second cooldown. It will taunt the target and cause them to move towards you at 50% increased speed. So this is a good way to get a target off of one of your party members. It's also an okay way to pull if you want to. And this is a utility ability that we're going to use sometimes. So we'll put that down over here. We already talked about Purifying Brew. Next up, we have Resuscitate. It's a res. It'll bring somebody back to life. It's only usable when you're not in combat. I stick these over on this bar here when it's just ability we're not using in combat, right? Next, we have Roll. Roll is our movement ability. This will allow us to roll at a short distance. It has 2 charges and a 20-second cooldown, so we can go ahead and roll. And you can see that, and we can roll again. So really good movement utility ability. That's going to allow us to dodge AoEs or to move forward faster, catch up with our party members, or get ahead of them so we can get threat on them before they start hitting them, whatever the case may be. Next up, we have Spearhand Strike. This is our kind of standard interrupt. Most classes or specializations have one of these. It's an instant cast ability with a 15-second cooldown. It's going to jab the target in the throat, interrupting spell casting and preventing any spell from that school of magic from being cast for 4 seconds. So a little bit of a lockout there if they're casting a nature spell and you do Spearhand Strike. It's going to interrupt that spell, and then they can't cast nature spells for 4 seconds after that. So we're going to put that down here in our crowd control stuff as well. Next, we have Transcendence, and Transcendence goes hand in hand with Transcendence Transfer. Transcendence will split your body and your spirit. It leaves behind a spirit version of yourself for 15 minutes. So you can go ahead and cast that there, and you can see that we have a spirit version of ourselves here. And so that's going to stay there for 15 minutes, and then you can use Transcendence Transfer to swap locations with your body and spirit. I had a bit of a bug there, but you can use your Transcendence Transfer to teleport back to wherever your spirit was when you cast Transcendence. The next ability we have is Vivify. This is a healing ability that we have on the Brewmaster Monk. It costs 30 energy. It's a 1.4 second cast, and it deals a little bit of healing. This is pretty much something we're never going to use. We're going to put this down here with our utility. This is mostly, you can use this to top yourself off in between fights if you need to. Most of the time, if you're in a desperate enough situation that you feel like you need to be casting Vivify on yourself, there's probably something more proactive that you could be doing. Next, we have Zen Flight. This is just a fun movement ability. We can put that over here. This is going to put us on a cloud, and it's going to let us fly around. It's basically a mount that the monk has. Then we have Zen Meditation. So Zen Meditation is another defensive cooldown that we have. This is a channeled ability on a 5-minute cooldown. It will reduce all damage taken by 60% for 8 seconds. Moving, being hit by a melee attack, or taking another action cancels this effect. So this is kind of a weird ability. The best place to use this is when you know you're going to get hit by a big attack, and then you can cast Zen Meditation, because as soon as you take damage of any kind, you are out of your Zen Meditation, which means that really this can say reduces the damage from the next attack by 60%. And that's really what this ability will do. So it's good to use this on abilities that are channeled, like if you see a boss getting ready to cast like a giant fireball, you can go ahead and go boop, Zen Meditation. That fireball will hit you. It will pull you out of that trance, and then you'll have reduced the damage of the fireball by 60%. So we're going to put that down here with our defensive cooldowns as well. We have Zen Pilgrimage. This is another kind of utility ability. This will just transfer you back to your home temple, which if you've been leveling a monk, I'm sure you're familiar with this. All right, and then that brings us to the end of our active abilities. We're going to take a look at a couple of the passive abilities that we haven't talked about yet, starting with Brewmaster's Balance. This gives us a 25% increase to our armor. We have Celestial Fortune. We have a chance equal to our critical strike chance to be healed for an additional 65% of the amount healed. So right now on my character, you can see my critical strike chance is 19%. So I have a 19% chance to be healed for an additional 65% of the amount healed. So if I'm getting healed for 100, I've got a 19% chance to get healed for 165 instead. So that's a nice little bonus to our healers, and it also will count for our self heals as well through like our orbs, or if we are casting Vivify or something like that. We already talked about Gift of the Ox and Mastery Elusive Brawler as well as Stagger, so that just leaves Mystic Touch. Your damage weakens the target, increasing physical damage taken by 5%. So any damage that you're doing to targets will automatically increase the physical damage of anyone else that is dealing damage to that target by 5%. So this is really helpful for your melee characters and your hunters, and this is just a nice passive bonus ability that you have on top of everything else. All right, I realized I missed one ability here, so we're going back real quick to take a look at it, and that's Tiger Palm. Tiger Palm is your filler ability. It's what you're going to do when you don't really have anything else to do. It costs 25 energy. It's a melee attack, instant cast. It attacks with the palm of your hand, dealing a low amount of damage, and it also will reduce the remaining cooldown on your brews by 1 second. So that's going to help you get your cooldowns back for your Iron Skin brew, your Purifying brew, and your Fortifying brew as well. This is something we're going to hit pretty often, just in between all of the other stuff that we're doing. So that covers all of the spells in our spell books. Next up, we're going to take a look at how this all kind of works together and how we're going to use that to tank in a dungeon. Alright, so normally I would use the target dummies to kind of show off the rotation here. However, a lot of what the monk does has to deal with the interactions with stagger, and you can't have any stagger if you don't take damage. So I have to go out to some place where I can actually take some damage, and that way I'll be able to show you how to actually use stagger. So this might be a little bit more chaotic than the usual stuff that I do, but just bear in mind that I kind of have to do it, otherwise I can't show you how to play the class the way it's supposed to be played. Alright, so we're out here in Tiergard Sound where we can harass some of the local wildlife and use them to show off some of the different stuff here for the tutorial. I have rearranged a couple of things on the action bar, so you can take a look at that. Everything's still in the same section. I just kind of changed the order a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and we're going to mess with a couple of enemies. And I'm going to show you a couple of things here with the Brewmaster Monk. Now, the first thing that you're probably going to notice, pay attention to the stagger bar here. And you're going to notice that with these regular enemies, I'm going to have practically no stagger coming into this bar here. So for example, if we go up and attack this quill rat, we won't even attack him, we'll just aggro him. You're going to see if I hover over my bar here, we got 1, 2, 3%. Let's drop down to 2%, 3%. So our stagger bar does not build up that much when we were out here in the open world. You can see this right here. This is one of our healing spheres. So we could back into that to absorb it, or we can cast our Expel Harm. You can see the number here tells us how many are available. So we can hit that. It's going to absorb it and deal a little bit of damage back. So if you're not worried about your stagger bar, which now we're up to 6%, it's getting up there. We're going to let it keep building up. Then what you're going to do to kind of open combat, once you've got your pull going, you want to use your Blackout Strike on cooldown, because that's going to give you your stacks of Elusive Brawler and help you dodge. You're going to want to use your Keg Smash on cooldown, because that's your biggest kind of source of damage. And then if you have Breath of Fire up, cast that as well. That's going to give you the damage over time component against the enemy. Now, outside of that, in general, you want to try to maintain your Iron Skin Brew buff as much as possible. So you're going to cast your Iron Skin Brew, and you're going to see that pop up here. I know. I told you not to heal in combat, but it's fine against this regular enemy here. So your Iron Skin Brew has a 7-second uptime, and you have 3 charges available. If you use multiple charges, it'll increase the time of Iron Skin Brew. So what you're going to want to do is use all 3 of those charges if you're going to be in combat for 21 seconds, which is how long of a buff you're going to get from Iron Skin Brew, because this is just going to allow you to stagger way more damage. What you're going to do is, while you're waiting on Iron Skin Brew to come off cooldown, then you could use your Purifying Brew to clear a bunch of the damage that you've staggered. Now, you saw against that enemy how, it took a long time for me to get up to a 6% stagger. Now, what I want to show you is the difference in how much damage is staggered when I have Iron Skin Brew up. So we're going to fight the same style enemy here, but as soon as I get into combat, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cast my Iron Skin Brew, and I'm going to use all the charges here. And now watch how fast my stagger is going up. We're already at 4%, 3. It's going to keep building up here. And before we were at like 1%, 2%, and gradually getting up to 6. So now we're already at 6, 7. We're probably going to get up to 8 or 9% stagger here for as long as we have our elusive brawler, which we've still got several seconds, or not elusive brawler, sorry, our Iron Skin Brew. Now, once we have our 5, 6% here, we can hit Purifying Brew, and that's going to get rid of half of what we had. We can walk into our Healing Sphere, and that's going to give us a little bit of healing. And then normally we would have started doing our rotation by now. So we get our Blackout Strike, we get our Keg Smash on cooldown, we Breath of Fire. We don't have Iron Skin Brew, so we're going to get that back up. We're going to Blackout Strike on cooldown. And then just try to make sure we still have this buff up. And if at any point you feel like you have enough uptime on Iron Skin Brew, or your damage is pretty high, you can Purifying Brew and get rid of some of that stagger. So that's what I wanted to show you. You basically want to maintain Iron Skin and Purify when you have a good chunk in here in your bar. Now, it might look like I'm in a more dire situation than I am while I'm showing this example, because A, I'm not attacking right away, I'm not using my abilities to defeat the enemy, and B, I don't have a healer healing me. So here's the other aspect of working with stagger. If you're in a group situation and you are playing with a healer, the healer is going to be able to keep your health bar up. So generally speaking, if I was taking this damage and staggering this stuff, if I had a healer, like let's say I'm my own healer here, I'm going to be able to keep my health bar up pretty well, right? So a lot of this is going into stagger. What your healer can't do is they can't do anything about what's in your stagger bar, right? They can heal it after it deals damage to you, but they can't reduce it at all. Only you can reduce it by using your Purifying Brew. So you really want to focus on managing your stagger, not so much worrying about your actual health total, because your healer should be able to recover you from that, because they're going to be used to healing enemy or healing tanks that will take the full amount of damage. Obviously, other tanks have ways to mitigate that damage as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to heal up, and we're just going to go up to an enemy here, and we're going to use our regular tank rotation. Now, one of the ways, we got a couple of ways we can pull enemies. We can either roll up to them and punch them in the face. We can use our Crackling Jade Lightning, or we can use Provoke to taunt them over. So like I could provoke this Quill Rat, and then we're going to go Blackout Strike into Keg Smash into our Breath of Fire, and then we're going to get Iron Skin Brew up. And then anytime we have downtime between the abilities we want to use on cooldown, we can get that Iron Skin Brew up again. Anytime we have downtime in between, we're going to Tiger Palm to do a little fill there and also help reduce the cooldown on our brews. So remember, between Keg Smash and Tiger Palm, we get reduction on our brews. That's why we want to hit Keg Smash every time on cooldown for 4-second reduction in the recharge on our brews. So the next thing that I want to show off here is we're going to grab a couple of different enemies if we can. And we're going to show kind of how this works in a group situation. Okay, so I was able to grab several of these little Azurite guys here. So we're going to Keg Smash, we're going to Breath of Fire, we're going to go ahead and get our Iron Skin Brew going. Keg Smash again. Once again, now you can see our stagger is really getting up there because we're actually getting hit by multiple enemies. So right now we're at about 15% stagger. So we can go ahead and cast a Purifying Brew, and you're going to see that drops down to 8-9%. All right, and right now I'm mainly just trying to show you how this is going to work. So don't worry too much about my health. In outdoor combat situations like this, you're usually going to be fine. You can always throw in like a Vivify here. Generally, like I said, your healer is going to be healing you. We could Purifying Brew, get some of that off here. You can see like I'm not really in any sort of trouble. And there we go. We've also got our little healing spheres here, so we can walk into those. And you can see I just got healed for 16,000. That was a critical heal. Probably also got the little nice buff from Celestial Fortune. So that was pretty nice. And you can see that here in the combat log, the whole time we were doing that, stagger was consistently damaging us based on how much stagger we had in the bar. But that's generally what you're going to do when it comes to your main rotation, right? You're going to get in there, you're going to make sure that you hit your Blackout Strike, you're going to get your Keg Smash and your Fire Breath going. That's going to help you maintain threat on the initial group of enemies. Then you're going to get your Iron Skin Brew stacks up. After that, you're going to want to hit your Blackout Strike every time it's off cooldown to get that Elusive Brawler stack going so you dodge more often. You're going to want to Keg Smash on cooldown so that you can get the 4% cooldown reduction on your brews, and also just because it's one of our best damaging abilities for multiple enemies. You want to try to Breath of Fire in combination with Keg Smash first, so Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, so you get the damage over time component of that and the damage reduction. And then anytime you've got space in between all that, you're going to hit Tiger Palm for some additional damage and reduction on your brews. Anytime your stagger gets up a pretty decent amount, you're going to want to go ahead and use one of your Purifying Brews to get rid of a chunk of it. And then outside of that, it pretty much just comes down to use your interrupts if you feel like you can interrupt. Use your rolls to get out of danger or to get closer to an enemy if you need to. Use Provoke to taunt enemies away from your party members. Expel Harm if you don't want to move, but you want to absorb all of your healing spheres. And then this stuff over here, you're pretty much just going to leave alone. Outside of that, you've got your defensive cooldowns. You got Zen Meditation, which is kind of hard to use unless you know the fight and you know what's coming. And if you get into a really sticky situation, then you have Fortifying Brew as your big oh crap cooldown. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our talents. We're going to set ourselves up with a talent build. It's going to be passive for the most part. It's going to let you kind of just focus on this core rotation that we're talking about here and use that in a dungeon and learn it before you go on and make a more complicated talent build. All right, so we're back, and we're going to be talking about the talent build that we're going to be using for the purposes of learning how to tank on a Brewmaster Monk. Now, this talent build is going to be focused on just giving you passive talents, so we're not going to complicate the rotation that we talked about too much. Just keep in mind that because this is really a passive-based talent build, it's not necessarily going to be the best build to tank on. You're going to want to kind of upgrade your talent build once you get comfortable with the core rotation of the specialization. So this is the build we're going to be using. We're going to go through each of the talents and talk about why we picked them and how they contribute to or change up the rotation that we just talked about. So the first one we have here is Eye of the Tiger. So Tiger Palm will now also apply Eye of the Tiger, which will deal damage over time to the enemy and heal you over time as well. So this debuff and buff will last for 8 seconds each. So what this means is now as part of your rotation, you want to try to maintain this Eye of the Tiger buff and debuff by making sure that you squeeze in a Tiger Palm every 8 seconds or so. So that doesn't add too much there, and it really just gives you the added benefit of more damage as well as more healing for your tank as well. Next up, we picked Chi Torpedo. Honestly, on this tier, you can kind of pick whatever you want here. I really like Chi Torpedo. This is just a replacement for Roll. You saw Roll earlier. This is just going to torpedo you forward and then allow you to run around with a movement speed buff for a few seconds afterwards. So this is going to have 2 charges with a 20-second recharge on those charges. You're going to torpedo forward a long distance and then increase your movement speed by 30% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. So you can chi torpedo twice in a row to get an increased movement speed buff. I like this because you do get launched forward pretty fast or pretty far, and then you also have that increased movement speed for 10 seconds. So this gives you a lot of mobility. You could also take Celerity, which will reduce the cooldown of roll by 5 seconds and also increase the maximum number of charges by 1. So you can do that if you like. Or you could take Tiger's Lust. This is an active ability that will increase a friendly target's movement speed by 70% for 6 seconds and remove all roots and snares. This is an activated ability. It's going to give you another button to push. So it's really entirely up to you. I personally just really like Chi Torpedo on all Monk specializations. So this is the talent that I tend to choose. Next up, we have Light Brewing. This is going to reduce the cooldown of Iron Skin Brew and Purifying Brew by 3 seconds. So you can see that now I've got an 11-second recharge instead of a 14-second recharge. This means I'm going to be able to use those brews much more often. It also increases their maximum number of charges by 1. So this is going to give me 4 charges instead of 3. So this is really going to let you get used to using Iron Skin Brew and also figuring out when you need to use Purifying Brew, because you're going to be able to have more uptime on the first, and you're going to be able to get those charges back and use Purifying Brew more often as well. Next, we have Tiger Tail Sweep. You can kind of pick anything on this row, but Tiger Tail Sweep is the simplest one. It's a passive ability that will increase the range of leg sweep by 2 yards and reduce the cooldown by 10 seconds. Leg sweep was our big AoE crowd control ability that knocks down all enemies within 5 yards. Now it's a increase there with the 2 yards to 7 yards, stunning them for 3 seconds. So this makes our big crowd control ability usable more often and extends its range a little bit. Next, we have Bob and Weave. This increases the duration of stagger by 3 seconds. So you can see here that instead of taking it over 10 seconds, we're going to extend that out to 13, which means that we're going to be taking less damage per second. Even though we're still going to take the damage because it's extended over a longer period of time, it's less damage per second, so we're going to take that damage slower, and then you have more opportunity to clear that damage with a Purifying Brew instead. Then we're going to take Special Delivery. Special Delivery, this is a passive ability that whenever you drink an Iron Skin Brew or a Purifying Brew, there's a 100% chance for you to toss a keg into the air that will land on nearby enemies after 3 seconds, dealing damage to all enemies within 8 yards and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. So essentially, this throws a keg for you when you use your Iron Skin Brew or Purifying Brew. You just have to keep in mind that there is a 3-second delay. This is going to give you some increased damage, and generally, the other two abilities on this tier are a little more complicated. They're going to give you other buttons to push, so we're just taking this one for now just to keep things simple. And then finally, on the last tier here, we're taking High Tolerance. Stagger is 8% more effective at delaying damage. So this is going to increase the amount of damage that we're able to stagger. And then also you gain up to 15% haste based on your current level of stagger. So haste is going to do a couple of things for us. It's going to let us attack faster, and it's also going to reduce the cooldown on our brews. So we're going to be able to use our Iron Skin Brew and our Purifying Brew much more often. Also, because we've got reduced cooldowns for some of our other abilities, we're able to use our Tiger Palm and Keg Smash more often, which is also going to cause us to reduce the cooldown on those brews. So all in all, this build is really just about making your stagger more effective and then allowing you to use your brews much more often. The only kind of oddball out there, as far as, something you might have to pay attention to, is really just Eye of the Tiger and making sure that you keep that stack up. So if we take a look here, if we go up to our enemy and we cast Eye of the Tiger, you're going to see here's the Eye of the Tiger debuff, and then here's the Eye of the Tiger buff. So it's dealing damage to them, it's healing us. So you still go into combat and you'll do your usual stuff here, and then you'll just sneak in an Eye of the Tiger there, and while you go about your business, doing everything else that you need to do, whenever that's about to come off, you'll just throw another Tiger Palm in there and keep that buff and debuff up on yourself. And that's really all there is to it. You're not going to really change your rotation much for this particular build. That's kind of the goal of the build. So you should be able to take the core stuff that we talked about into a dungeon and practice, practice, practice. And that's what we're going to do next. All right, so we're loading into Waycrest Manor here. And got everybody here. Looks like we do. So we got a couple of ways to pull. Usually in a weird setup like this, I'll try to pull something with the Crackling Jade Lightning. Just stop it right away because we're going to want to make sure. We're going to want to make sure that we're not spending a bunch of energy on Crackling Jade Lightning. So here I'm kind of using my brews and stuff over and over again to try to grab aggro on everything. It's a little bit of a rough first pull. Didn't get to gather everything up the way that I wanted to, but that's all right. Grab them. So right here, I'm going to keg smash into Breath of Fire. That's going to get me aggro there. You can see right now I'm doing pretty good on my health, and my stagger's not too bad. So that's one of the situations where, since I'm not too worried about the healing aspect and my defenses, I'm just going to focus on trying to help kill stuff. So let's see. So once again, just going to pick up with a keg smash into a Breath of Fire here. It looks like this person decided that they wanted to pull a whole bunch of extra stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Iron Skin Brew going. And pretty much every chance I get here, I'm going to try to keg smash into Breath of Fire just to kind of keep aggro. And it looks like we got a marksman back here, so I'm going to go over here and try to make sure that I've got the aggro on him as well. Now I've got a good amount of stagger here, so I could hit a Purifying Brew and clear off about half of that. This guy is totally ignoring me. There we go. So I'm also, at this point, I'm still trying to fill out the group and kind of figure out what's going on. It appears to me, so right there I can keg smash. That'll get me some aggro. I can change targets here. And because we don't have a whole lot of AoE abilities initially, like, you may have to do a little bit of target juggling. And what I mean by that is, get a hit on one target, switch targets, get a hit on them as well. So we're going to come in, I'm going to keg smash, I'm going to position myself so my Breath of Fire can hit a bunch of targets there. And now I'm going to kind of bounce from target to target here with my single target stuff. And just try to maintain aggro on the different enemies while I'm waiting for my AoE abilities to come off cooldown. So really at the moment all we have is Keg Smash and Breath of Fire to try to get aggro on a big group of enemies. And because those have pretty decent cooldowns, you do kind of need to wait a little bit in the very beginning of the pull. So like here I'm just going to Tiger Palm, Blackout, and then I'm going to go into Keg Smash, Breath of Fire. So my party might take a small hit initially, but it's okay. So this piglet came in. So I went ahead and I used a keg smash on that. And you can see like my healer's doing a really good job of keeping me topped off here. So let's go ahead. We got a boss in here, so let's pull some of the stuff in this room. So you can see I'm kind of waiting for a keg smash into Breath of Fire to pick up everything. I am going to go ahead and get my Iron Skin Brew going here. I'm going to purify some of that. I have now been silenced. We're going to go back here because we obviously pulled some extra groups there. All right, so we're going to Blackout, Keg Smash, Breath of Fire. Like right now, my main thing is to see that I got a big chunk of stagger cleared. So my main thing is to hold aggro against all these enemies. And you could see, it looked like we were in kind of a bad spot there, but we cleared off so much damage. Like right here with Purifying Brew, that's going to take off, that was about 11%. And then I can Expel Harm here to pull in all those orbs if I want. There's a little bit of damage aspect from Expel Harm, but it's really more just about getting the orbs. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a problem here. We got a Keg Smash back. That's good. So let's go ahead and get some of our Fortifying Brew going. All right, we're going to want to grab this ghoul here. Also, it gets a little chaotic with all this fire going, trying to make sure that you've got the right target. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. A little moment over here by the door where our health got kind of low, but you saw that our stagger bar actually was able to get up pretty high, so that was nice. So we're going to go in on the boss, and here we could just kind of get our standard rotation going. Go ahead and build up some of our iron skin brew. I'm going to save one charge for a purifying brew in case I need it. And then basically all I'm doing here now is if I get 2 stacks, I'm going to use an iron skin brew. Otherwise, I'm just going to cycle through my keg smash, breath of fire, trying to hit that blackout strike all the time and get that tiger punch in. Now we are going to get some ads at some point during this fight. So I want to, yeah, right here he's calling servants. So we're going to want to make sure that we've got the ability to pick up the servant when they come in. So right there, we can just hit a crackling jade lightning or something like that. Now it looks like our party was doing a pretty good job handling those ads there, so that's good. Because generally, they're not like super strong ads. All right. Next up, we're going to go and we're just going to grab all this with a keg smash into a breath of fire. Go ahead and get a couple stacks of iron skin brew. And then we're going to just go into our regular rotation. No big deal. We can expel harm here. It's only for 1 healing orb, but you know, these guys they're going to go down pretty quick, so we can throw in a purifying brew here and get rid of some of that stagger at the very end. Got some extra maggots. All right. Now out here, it's pretty easy to pick up some crazy stuff, so okay, I let everything run over to me, and then I immediately hit my stuff here. This is going to cause some issues, so I'm going to try to get everything off the healer. As soon as I have a keg smash up, I'm going to keg smash again. Then I'm going to get this iron skin brew going. And once again, keg smash. We got breath of fire up now. We can go ahead and purify some of our stagger damage. We can go ahead and purify again. Now, once we're down in like the green here, you're okay. You can go ahead and go back to getting your iron skin brew stacks back up. Let's go ahead and pull that, and we're going to go over here and punch her in the face. And they pulled, yeah, someone is pulling the extra enemies instead of giving me time to pick them up, so I just kind of have to go and wing it as far as gathering them goes. And they also pulled the boss, so this is kind of a crap situation. But we'll go ahead and we'll get our brews up. Make sure we're maintaining aggro and everything here. I'm going to focus on the boss because the other guys should be down pretty quickly here. All right, so let's go ahead and get ourselves down to 1 stack. And yeah. Okay, that wasn't the boss. This is the boss. That was just a big ad. All right, here we go. So we'll do our usual rotation here. We're going to get our iron skin brew going. Got 3 stacks of that, so we'll keep an eye on that. And when we get low, well, come on, guys, get the thing off of her. All right. When we get low on our iron skin brew, we're going to want to pop that again. We're up in yellow for our stagger, so we can purify some of that. We've got 1 orb, so we can go ahead and hit that as well. Let's go ahead and get these soul thorns off. And there we go. So, you know, playing on a monk can feel kind of chaotic compared to some of the other tanks, I think. But you have a lot of leeway with your stagger bar actually helping you out quite a bit. Yeah, and when you're in between fights, just kind of purifying some of that damage off is no big deal. Your stacks should be back by the time you get to your next group. Alright, so let's go. I'm just going to kind of punch each one of those. See if I can. There we go. Alright, we'll get our Iron Skin Brew going again. I'm just going to use 2 stacks here because I think we'll probably be done with the group before then. Okay, we pulled some extra adds here. So I'm going to keg smash. I'm going to go ahead and purify some of that. Get my Iron Skin Brew, purify. I've got expel harm for 3, so that should help out as well. Alright. We'll purify some more of that. Keep our Iron Skin Brew up. Pretty much all I'm doing here is once I hit the yellow, I'm kind of trying to purify some of that damage off. Go ahead and purify again. Our orbs for some healing. So that was a little bit crazy. We're getting some extra pulls and stuff here, but I mean, you could see how you just kind of have to manage it. I think the weakest link here is just having the AoE to try to get aggro on a bunch of things all at once. So there I was just Tiger Striking to fill because I didn't feel like I really needed the Iron Skin Brew. You know, I didn't have like any stagger up or anything like that, so I wasn't taking very much damage. So we're going to Keg Smash into Breath of Fire as soon as that's off cooldown. Like you can see, I'm kind of tab targeting through the enemies here. Since I didn't have Breath of Fire on cooldown, I wanted to make sure that I had aggro on all the enemies. And my health is pretty low. Okay. And the healer got me up really fast on that one. Alright, so we'll pick them up. We got a Keg Smash into Breath of Fire. Go ahead and get our Iron Skin Brew up. You know, you can also judge how many Iron Skin Brew stacks you need based on the duration of the fight. That was going to be a short fight, so I figured, you know, I probably only needed the 1. Alright, let's go ahead and grab Keg Smash, Breath of Fire here. We're going to start picking on the main enemy here, the big guy. And it looks like they're going to pull that over there, so I'm going to come up and try to Keg Smash. I don't quite have Breath of Fire yet, but as soon as I do, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to go ahead and pop my Fortifying Brew. That's going to give me some additional health there, since that was a bit of a rough situation to be in. So yeah, we pulled an extra group there. It was kind of tough. I used my defensive ability. You know, that let me stagger more. That let me reduce damage, increase my health. So here, I'm going to kind of... These witches tend to not group up very much, so I'm going to try to get some initial aggro on all of them. Get my Iron Skin Brews up. So now I should be able to maintain a pretty good amount of aggro on all of them. And if not, I've got my Provoke if I need it, and if one of them gets out of hand, then I just try to start focusing all my, you know, efforts on that particular enemy. All right, we want to keep our Iron Skin up. Losing a little bit of health here. We're not quite up to the yellow where we, you know, want to use a Purifying Brew, so I'm just going to keep using the Iron Skin Brew for now. Alright, and we can kind of cycle through here a little bit and maintain aggro that way. Keep our Iron Skin Brew going. I mean, you're seeing the cycle here, right? And, you know, when I'm explaining what to do in the dungeons, you know, it's a little bit harder to concentrate trying to do both things at once, so that looks like that's on me, so I'm going to step away. Alright. So not too bad there, not too bad on the boss fight. You can see that it's those kind of emergency weird situations that actually give you the most trouble. Boss fight, not too bad. And on these single targets here, it's good to use Keg Smash and all that stuff, but you know, as you've seen here, we've had multiple instances where we've pulled an additional group. So on a single target like that, I don't actually want to use my my Keg Smash and my Breath of Fire, because if they pull another group, I don't have anything to pick up that additional aggro. So if you think there's a chance that you're going to pull an extra group, I would recommend just keeping either your Keg Smash and Breath of Fire, or keeping one of them as just kind of like a backup, so that you can get aggro on multiple things at once. So like right here, I'm going to kind of just wait, Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, and immediately get those Iron Skin Brews going. By the time you're done with that, you should have another Keg Smash to go back into. Just want to make sure that we constantly have that Iron Skin Brew up. Now, what I would recommend that you do ultimately is you get an add-on that shows how much you have for your... it tells you the stacks of your Iron Skin Brew. That way you're not trying to glance up here in the corner and figure that out. Now I'm going to double Purify here, because I have a lot of damage. Let's go ahead and Expel Harm. That's going to give us a nice burst of healing. I'm going to kind of move myself away from the party here. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and purify a good chunk of that stagger damage off there. So that's a pretty big pull. Looks like they went ahead and pulled. Yeah, I've got an impatient group here. You know, that's just how it is. And if that's how it is, then I mean they could deal with the consequences essentially of, you know, you got to give me time to get aggro, and if you don't, then some people are going to take damage. Seem to be doing pretty good though here. So seem to have a pretty decent group. All right, let's keep on going. Am I going the wrong way? I'm going the wrong way. This is where having the Chi Torpedo helps out quite a bit. Gives you a lot of movement speed buff. All right. Hello. Now I get the feeling that somebody is going to pull that group down there, so I did not Breath of Fire right away. This will probably be the one time that they don't do it. But we've got... Oh, there we go. There we go. So I almost have a Keg Smash. So I'm going to hit Keg Smash as fast as I can here. Get my iron skin up. Then I got a Keg Smash and just try to aim that Breath of Fire right so that I get a nice cone going in there. We're going to purify some of that damage off. There we go. Alright, and now we were on to the boss here. So I'm just going to hit Provoke on him. Alright, so here I'm just going to go ahead and build up these stacks as much as I can. So right now we've got 13 seconds of our elusive brawler. Let's get out of that stuff there. Just try to stay out of this stuff here. Our stagger's getting kind of high, but not too high. So I'm not really too worried about purifying at the moment. Alright, we'll Breath of Fire so we can hit both of them. We're going to go ahead and purify a little bit of that off. Alright, so they're wanting to like pull everything, of course. So let's go ahead and pick up. Looks like we lost one of our DPS characters. Yeah, this just turned into a mess. Thanks, everyone. Alright, we're going to go ahead and pop our defensive again. We're going to make sure we've got our thing here. I don't know what just happened there. I don't know like what possessed. It's just impatience. It's just got to be impatience. This is just stuff you deal with when you're a tank. Luckily, it doesn't look like anybody has died yet. It looks like I may die. This is everybody wants you to run down at this point. Let's go ahead and purify some of that stagger damage. Yeah, I don't know what the deal. That happens every single time. People just want to run all the way through. But whatever. We're alive. We lost one person. That's okay. All right. Let's get into it here. Go ahead and purify some of that. Like at this point, I mean, like we're basically done with the boss, so. All right, and there we go. So we had a couple of moments there, a couple of things on my end for just, forgetting where to go. Or, right there in the hallway. Everybody does that every time, and I just still just am not used to it, just wanting to run all the way down to the bottom. So, but that did give you kind of a little picture of how to keep yourself alive as a Brewmaster Monk in a dungeon when everybody runs away. So that, definitely helped. But that's essentially what you're going to do on the Brewmaster Monk. Now, one of the big things you've noticed here was the lack of, really easily accessible AoE to pick up your enemies if you've got multiples. And that's going to come in when we check out our talent builds in the future. If you really find that you're struggling with the timing of that, pick up Rushing Jade Wind. Generally speaking, this is going to be the ability you're going to want to use on a Brewmaster Monk anyway. So I would say as soon as you feel like you've got the core rotation down, pick up Rushing Jade Wind. Add that to your bar as part of your core rotation, and then this has a 5.6 second cooldown versus Keg Smash having a 7.4 and Breath of Fire having a 15 second. So this is going to be your go-to AoE pickup ability. So you're going to be able to hit this. It's a whirling tornado that does a bunch of damage over 8.3 seconds to enemies within 8 yards. So once you're comfortable with the core rotation, pick this up right away and start doing that. This will be in the advanced talent build that I talk about in a different video. Other than that, let me know if you have any questions. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're having fun in whatever it is that you're doing. And as always, I'll see you on the next video.